see, all right, who who on their team maybe might flash as a Tuesday player. And by the way, we've already gotten up over on the Patreon group. The game plan has started. Okay, so what we've got is the three keys on offense, the three keys on defense, along with the final injury report, the things we just covered. And then tomorrow, I'm going to add in the Tuesday players and a little bit of a strategic approach there. If I get time to watch some tape, I'm also going to show you maybe one or two diagrams of plays that Pittsburgh's like to run, that they've hit some explosive plays on, much like we did there with the Arizona Cardinals. You guys know we showed a couple of concepts or talked about a couple of concepts, showed one on Patreon. And lo and behold, Marvin Harrison Jr. ended up being a little bit of an issue, right? He made several plays in one-on-one situations, not enough for them to get the dub, but nonetheless, he was a factor in the game for sure. So, all right, let's jump into, excuse me, our offense against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. All right, the first thing I want to point out here on our side of the ball, how about this, guys? Josh Jacobs is officially the highest graded running back in the entire NFL with an 83.1 offensive grade. How cool is that, right? And we would all agree, man, the running game seems like it's been a little, struggling a little bit this year, and I think we would all agree it's the offensive line's fault. It's not Josh Jacobs' fault, but it's just so cool to see Josh Jacobs getting the recognition he deserves there, being an 83.1 and being the highest graded running back in the National Football League right now. That's really, really cool stuff. Jordan Love, 78.6. He's currently sitting as the ninth highest graded quarterback at that 78.6. He's got a passer grade of 79.8, which actually makes him the seventh highest passing grade in the NFL. So Jordan Love officially a top 10 quarterback. Most people think top five. I think at his best, he's top three. And at his worst, he's top 15 is kind of how I see it. So obviously that number 10 spot just inside it falls right there in the middle. So when we look at our offensive line PFF grades now from left to right, we got Rasheed Walker, 63, Aaron Banks, 49, Elton Jenkins, 59, Jordan Morgan, 48, and Zach Tom, a 76. I tweeted out some statistics earlier today. I retweeted someone. I think it might have been Jacob Morley that posted it. I apologize if it wasn't. But talking about how Jordan Morgan is, there's some other analytics that are showing that he's a really, really effective pass blocker at the guard position. So again, the PFF grades are what they are. Take them, with a grain of salt. And I think Jordan Morgan is playing much better than that 48.4 is actually giving him credit for sure. So now let's look at their defensive front, because this is one of the most important matchups I think of the day is what does their defensive front look like against our offensive line? Well, they've got two players that I would dub Tuesday players, right? You've got Cam Hayward in the middle, the defensive tackle. And listen, man, he's been doing it for a while, and he's still doing it at an exceptionally high level, 89.6 elite PFF grade. So Cam Hayward in the middle, 6'5", 295, obviously a former first-round pick all the way back in 2011. It's amazing how time flies. Absolutely wild. I was actually in a Madden league with him one time, believe it or not. That's a story for another day. That was a really interesting situation. Pretty cool. Seems like a really, really good guy for sure. But again, 89.6, man. Run defense grade 80.6, pass rush grade 81.3. He's just solid. He's one of those dudes in the middle that they'll probably in key situations, they'll try to put him opposite of TJ Watt. That way the offensive line is somewhat conflicted on who do they want to double team. You'll always be trying to chip Watt and double team Hayward, I would imagine. We'll see how that goes. You guys know, man, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth, right? That's what Mike Tyson once said. And Cam Hayward is one of those guys that can do it for sure, man. Yeah, that's right. Deadfish says Ironhead Hayward's son. I grew up rooting for Ironhead because obviously he played for Pittsburgh as well. And I do like the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of, they got Joey Porter Jr. there, so on and so forth. Really, really cool how they approach stuff. So Aaron Rodgers with the super chat. Thank you, buddy. He says, evening PTA, excited for Sunday Night Football. Love Rodgers. He will always be my GOAT. One thing to watch is Rodgers catching us with 12 men on the field. Go, Pack, go. It's a very, very good point. And what he's going to want to do, he's going to want to rotate in and out of 12 to 13 personnel back to 11 and try to catch us lagging, right? And listen, chances are he will catch us once or twice, just like the hard count. You just got to make sure you minimize that opportunity he has for those free plays for sure, man. So Yeah, appreciate the super chat, Aaron, and I'm glad you brought that up, man. That's a great point. I'm sure everyone will be looking for that on Sunday night as well, man. Aaron's one of the best to do it when it comes to that. So, all right. So we talked about the running back. Let's talk about their linebackers, guys. If there's a weak spot in this defense, at least from a PFF standpoint, I think it's definitely the linebacker position. All right. So Peyton Wilson, you guys know, had a great rookie year, 74.0, 17th highest graded linebacker in the league last year. And of course, he's having that sophomore slump at a 44.3. You know, he's always going to be kind of, in my opinion, comped to Edgerrin Cooper. I know we got Edgerrin Cooper in the second round. He and Peyton Wilson fell all the way to the third round, mainly because of injuries. But Peyton Wilson, he had elite athleticism, if I remember correctly. They were just a little concerned about his injury history. But he's off to a slow start this year. And you can look at this one of two ways. We talk about this all the time. If a player graded out well in prior years and he's down early in the year in the current year, you can look at it like, oh man, he's not playing as well this year, or you can look at it like he's due for a breakout game, right? So I try to stay pretty balanced in that regard. But Peyton Wilson, I think, is a good linebacker, a good young linebacker. I think that he's just off to kind of a slow start here. Obviously, run defense grade 47.5. When you look at the stack backers, man, along with Patrick Queen, who had a great year last year, if I remember right. No, maybe not. So he had his best years in 2022 and 2023. So last year he graded out a 56.8. This year he's sitting at a 46.9. So with Patrick Queen um, and Peyton Wilson struggling this year, and don't get me wrong, Patrick Queen's run defensive grades much better than Peyton Wilson's at a 68.8. Pass rush grades a 73, but his coverage grade is really bad, right? So at a 32.9. So one of the weak spots of this defense, if you look at the defensive front and you say, okay, Cam Hayward's a stud. And of course, we know TJ Watt's a stud. We'll bounce back and talk about him here in a second. You look at the stack backers and go, okay, that's a weak spot, right? So you start to formulate your game plan around, if the PFF grades were to hold true to on-field performance, right? And again, I don't think it's everything, but I think it is a valuable tool. You got to look at this and go, okay, first and foremost, let's make sure we protect Jordan Love, right? Let's make sure that those two Tuesday players and Cam Hayward and TJ Watt don't blow up the game plan, but you can really attack those linebackers. How can you attack them? Let's run the football, right? Let's establish the run, but also their pass defense from a statistical standpoint is actually worse than their run defense. So what I put in the game plan is, hey, let's go out there and air this thing out. Now you got to be aware of Patrick Ramsey. Patrick Ramsey, really crazy stat I read earlier today. Let me find it here. Jalen Ramsey has allowed only 2 yards per coverage snap when aligning. I'm sorry, has allowed 2 yards per coverage snap when aligning as a wide corner this year, the fourth most in the NFL. So when he's outside, he's given up the fourth most yards per coverage snap of any corner in the league, right? So he's like fourth most in a bad way. But another stat, Jalen Ramsey has allowed 2 yards per coverage snap when a line out wide, fourth most in the league. However, he has also allowed 3 touchdowns from that alignment, tied for sixth most, right? However, when aligned in the slot, he's allowed just 1.1 yards per coverage snap, nearly half of the two he has allowed at wide. So why do I say that? It's kind of like a Nate Hobbs thing, guys. You know, we haven't seen Nate Hobbs in the slot, so we just see him out wide and we think, oh man, he's not performing that well. Well, if he was one of those guys that he was playing in the slot in our nickel and then only in base he would kick outside, which is what he did with the Raiders, maybe we would look at him a little bit different, right? Ramsey is really good. I would say he's really good in the slot, but he's struggling on the boundary, right? So how do you keep him on the boundary? Maybe you stay in 12 personnel, right? So if you stay in 12 personnel and he stays out on the boundary, maybe you can get a little bit of an advantage there, but also you want to press into 11 personnel. If Matthew Golden is healthy and Christian Watson's on the field, you're probably going to run more 11 personnel than you have here recently. If you approach it that way, you probably want to stay away from those slot targets. And the reason being is because if Matthew Golden is playing F and Christian Watson's playing Z while Romeo Dobbs is playing X, Dontavion Wick's probably going to be out this game, then you probably want to stay away from trying to target Matthew Golden, because when you're in 11 personnel, Ramsey's going to be covering him, right? And he's better in the slot as opposed to outside of corner. Again, it doesn't mean he's going to be better on Sunday night, but that's what the statistics show, the analytics show so far in this young season. So let's bounce back now to TJ Watt. We kind of skipped over. I want to get back to it. Right. TJ Watt's having a down year here, according to PFF and statistically. Okay. So obviously, the prior 2 years, 2023, a 91.9, last year, a 91.7. And then this year, he's fell to a 78.3. Still a solid year, right? But he's definitely having a down year. I want to say I pulled the stats earlier, and I feel like he hasn't been as effective this year statistically either. So I kind of agree with the PFF grades there. Yeah, like when you look at pressure percentage, guys, if we were to show all players, I know you guys can't see this. I'm just going to read it off to you here real quick. TJ Watt this year, his pressure percentage is 12.1%. And he's got 4 sacks on the year, but his pressure percentage has dipped to 12.1%. Now, it looks like his run stops are up a little bit with 20 run stops up to this point. So PFF saying he's having a down year, but even with that down year, it's still pretty effective, right? 12% pressure rate is not bad. It's just we're used to TJ Watt being up there around 18 or 19%. So, again, I still classify him as a Tuesday player. I think he's the heart and soul of that defense. Him and Cam Hayward right there up front. So, again, attack the stack backers, right? Be very, very aware of the pass rush and don't let Cam Hayward and TJ Watt blow up the game plan, right? That's going to be the main thing here. Now, when we go to the cornerback position, we talked about Ramsey a little bit, right? 65.1. On the outside, Darius Slay, a 54.7. So he's struggling this year. And then Joey Porter Jr. at a 60.6. So the cornerback room, nothing special there, right? Nothing special. And here's just a little side note. You guys make a mental note of this. They play a ton of cover 3 and a ton of cover 1 man. So the majority of the snaps we're going to see Sunday night, their defense is going to be in single high looks. And I think we've got a stat on this as well. If I can go back to the homepage, give me just a second, because I thought this was really, really interesting here. Jordan Love. All right, so here we go. The Steelers defense has utilized a single high safety on 66% of dropbacks this season. That's the second highest rate in the NFL. When using single high, the Steelers have allowed a league high, I repeat, a league high 1,093 yards. So here's a matchup statistic here. Jordan Love has averaged the 5th most yards per attempt against single high in 2025 at 8.3, while completing 64% of his passes, right above the league average of 63.3%. So what's the moral of the story there? If they stick to their normal game plan, they being the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to be in middle field close, what we call middle field close, which means single high safety, which means cover 1 man or cover 3, different variations, right? Jordan Love has pretty much been the 5th best quarterback at attacking middle field close. So if they don't change up their game plan and go to a shell look, right, or a zero look, Jordan kind of has the advantage there. So what you're noticing is when you're in 11 personnel, Matthew Golden you're kind of reducing your chances of being effective there if you go to Matthew Golden too early and too often with Jalen Ramsey playing better in the slot than outside, right? They're going to be in cover 1 man and middle field close most of the day. This to me kind of feels like a Romeo Doubs game. I could be wrong, but it kind of feels like a Romeo Doubs game. Now, when they're in cover 1 man and you run a crossers concept, we ran that quite a bit. You guys remember we ran mesh and crossers. We showed you on Chalk Talk. And if you guys are wondering, if you don't know what mesh and crossers, mesh is just 2 shallow crosses that intersect. Crossers are 2 mid to deep climb/crosser routes that intersect. And that is a middle field close beater. Primarily, it's a man coverage beater, a cover 1 beater. Okay. So with that being said, if you press into 12 personnel and get Ramsey on the outside where he's not as comfortable as in the slot, and let's say you do have Matthew Golden on the field, or let's say it's Christian Watson, and you're running those crosser concepts with maybe mesh underneath with your 2 tight ends if you come out in your dub set, hey, that sounds like a recipe for success to me. So just keep that in mind. They run a lot of middle field close. Jordan Love has been very, very effective at middle field close. So now that's their cornerback room. Let's look at their safeties. Their safeties don't look too bad, really. Clark back there, a 66.3 is the 25th highest graded safety. That's Chuck Clark. Oh, Chucky boy. So he's having a decent year, and you can kind of see his best years were 69.8. His lowest years were a 50.8, which was last year. So he's having a pretty solid start here. So I wouldn't consider their safety room a weakness, to be honest with you, because opposite of him, you've got Deshaun Elliott from the Texas Longhorns, former 6th-round pick, and he's grading out a 69 this year. Last year he was a 71.1. So again, the coverage grade not that great, 63.6, with the pass rush grade of 76.9. What's that tell you? Probably, excuse me, they're probably playing him as the Spurs safety the majority of the time, and they're not afraid to fire him on a fire zone blitz and drop someone else out into coverage, right? So that's kind of how I see that situation there. Again, I don't see their safeties as a weak spot. I see their corners as a weak spot. Um, and their linebackers as a weak spot. Their stack backers, if that makes sense. So Brooke with the super chat. Thank you. She says, see above. LOL. Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate you. Says wish list play. Love bombs to Watson. Exact same play as the first throw from Rodgers to Watson. Identical, but it completes to be a touchdown. I've said this earlier in the week, Brooke. Somebody else has said, "Man, how cool would it be if the first play back, Watson, they hit Watson for a deep touchdown? If that happens, I'm going to hit my head on the ceiling fan. I'm just telling you right now. I'm going to be so fired up if Watson comes out there and shows he's still got the speed just right off the bat. Just why not do it? First play of the game. If they show you single high look, cover one man, and they're kind of playing that outside leverage like we talk about funneling things to the post safety, then why not try to bend it outside and take the inside, which is actually the same exact play. If you guys remember, I can't believe I remember this play. You go back to Rodgers' first year there with Christian Watson, and it was later in the year against Dallas at Lambeau, and it's the same technique Watson did. He busted up the sideline, leaned on the corner outside, and then broke back inside to make the catch because, again, he's playing outside leverage with the safety, in playing center field. And if I remember correctly, that was Dan Quinn's defense at the time, which was man coverage heavy. So it was probably a cover one look. Use your body to create a little bit of separation, force him to the sideline, kind of make him overplay his leverage, and then last second late hands catch to grab it there. So, yeah, Brooke, I would be fired up if that were to happen. And thank you for that super chat. Appreciate you. So, all right, that's pretty much how our offense stacks up against their defense for the most part. Now, listen, we're showing Watson obviously no grade, so it kind of feels like PFF is anticipating Watson to play. Golden is now our highest rated receiver at a 70.4. Okay. Now keep in mind, Golden did pop up on the injury report, so there's a chance he doesn't play. So we got to take that into consideration as well. So let's pretend Golden doesn't play in this game. What does this look like? Right? Who's going to be playing the F or the slot position? You'll have Watson at the Z if he's healthy, right? Dobbs at the X, Golden out of the game, Dontavion Wicks out of the game. Does this mean Savion Williams is going to have an opportunity? And again, I hope Golden's on the field. I'm just kind of lining up getting all the ducks in one row here. What would the offense look like if Matthew Golden is not in the lineup, right? I think it would also spell a lot more 12 personnel, right? That's another way that you could kind of get around that too. So that might be the approach they take as well. Our Aaron Rodgers, not the Aaron Rodgers, with a super chat. Thank you, buddy. Says, I feel like it's going to be a craft game with the weak coverage at the linebacker, especially if Golden and Watson are playing. So that's a great point, Aaron. I'm glad you brought it up. Let's say that's the case, right? Let's say that maybe Matthew Golden isn't playing and we have to press into 12 and Tucker Kraft is going to be the guy that you highlight. Look at Tucker getting better every year, guys. I seen the projection earlier today. Somebody had projected out his stats at the rate he's going this year. And if he keeps it up, Tucker Kraft's going to finish with like 900 yards receiving, right? Which is really, really awesome for a tight end. But his PFF grades starting in 2023, 60.4, 67.8, 68.1. And I don't know how you guys feel. I feel like he's getting better every game. So I expect him to finish in the 70s this year. And that's the type of trajectory you're looking for a good young player. You know, we always talk about this, is a perfect example. We always talk about how with a player, when they're drafted, their rookie year, if they grade out in the 60s, it can be the low 60s. It can be, just right there, like Tucker here, 60.4. That's typically an indicator, okay, this guy can play at this level. Now, how much is he going to apply himself? How much is he going to put into his craft and honing his skills to be the best at his position, right? Tucker's done that. And every year he's gotten better, 67.8 and then 68.1. I'm really, really excited to see Tucker ball out. And again, This goes hand in hand with what we talked about, Aaron, because their stack backers are so weak, right? Wilson and Queen both grading out bad. What was Wilson's coverage grade? His coverage grade, I'm going to drop that down. Thank you for that super chat, bub. 46.7, right? So that's a weak spot. And then if you looked at Queens once again, his coverage grade, 32.9. Boys, that sounds like, and girls, sorry, that sounds like a Tucker Craft day. So Matthew Golden, probably going to be very, very careful with his over-under. Even if he plays, he's a little banged up. Plus, um, Patrick Ramsey. Is it Patrick Ramsey? Jalen Ramsey. Patrick Ramsey was an old quarterback back in the day. That's hilarious. Jalen Ramsey playing better in the slot than outside. I wouldn't focus on Golden so much in terms of, fantasy football or even maybe trying to take an over on him. Now, listen, he could ball out. I hope he does. But I think if you're playing the numbers game here, I would press into maybe a Tucker Craft type role there. And a Romeo Dobbs is what it kind of feels like. And the reason I say this is because if you do come out in a dub set, and let's say you're in 11 personnel, and you run a dagger concept or even a slot cross concept, which we know Matt LaFleur loves those two concepts, that's going to really open things up for Romeo Dobbs on that dig. And the reason that's always open on a cover one man look, guys, is because think of it. The one would be Dobbs running the dig, okay? And in front of him, it's either going to be a go route, right? If it's a go route, then you're taking the post safety with you. And keep in mind, the outside corner that's on Dobbs is playing outside leverage, funneling everything to the middle of the field. So if that's the case, and you could even run a dagger, but turn it into a skinny post with that number 2, that's another way you can hold that safety at home. Now, if the safety bites, if he says, I think they're going to Dobbs, that's going to be their go-to guy, and he wants to clamp down from his post position and come down on that dig, fire it over the top to whoever's in the 2. If it's Matthew Golden, Savion, whoever. I like the idea of Christian Watson being in that number 2 on that situation. And you can accomplish that not just from a Dubs 11 personnel or a Dubs 12 personnel. You can also press into 12's twin, which is something that we like to do a lot last week, was you notice Matt LaFleur would line up 2 wide receivers on one side of the formation and the tight ends on the other. And we were still running mesh. It was just a tight end wide receiver combo mesh, or a crosser. It was a tight end wide receiver crosser concept. Or at one point, we flexed from that position, we flexed the Y out with Tucker Craft, and we ended up running crossers that way as well, right? So you can still get to the same concepts and different looks. And by doing that, you're forcing Ramsey on the outside where he's not playing as good of football. So that's going to be really, really interesting. It's going to be definitely going to be a nice little chess match for sure. I'm excited about this game. And yeah, I'm with you, Aaron. I think Tucker, man, this might be a game for him for sure. See what Coach Lynn had to say. Speed to 3 with Watson would really open up the middle of the field. Yeah, and if you go to that 3, here's what's cool too, Coach. Let's say Matthew Golden doesn't play, and you go, okay, if he's in the 3, that means you're in a trip set, and Matthew Golden ain't on the field. How often are you going to run trip sets? Well, you can do it out of 12, right? Just flex Tucker out over there, or flex Musgrave out over there, and get to the same thing, and just make sure, like you're saying, Christian Watson is that speed to 3. What we mean by that, guys, is when you hear me say the 1, the 2, or the 3, you count from the outside in on both sides. Okay. So if you're just talking about the left side of the formation, the outside receiver would be the number 1. He would be the 1 receiver. The next one in would be the 2. Just count it outside in. 1, 2, 3. So when you hear Coach Lynn or anybody else say speed to 3, you're talking about putting a speedy receiver in that number 3 spot. And it really, really puts the defense in a bind. Whether you want to run a deep climb route where he can run away from man coverage and still clear the safety, or if you want to send him on a go with a dagger concept or whatever it may be, right? But throwing speed to 3 really upsets. It really upsets match coverage is what it does. And there's a lot of teams that play a lot of match coverage. So great point, Coach. That'd be nice to see Christian out there. What I want to see Christian do is just take the top off the defense all day long. I don't want to see him working underneath much. If you want to get him 10 reps, when you call dagger, make sure he's in the 2 taking the top off, right? If you want to go with another concept, a Haas concept or whatever, make sure he's in the proper spot to take the top off the defense, right? And let him get his wind back. Let him, and who knows, man, he may burn somebody off the line. It's a good test of his speed as well. Chuck that thing up, chuck and duck, see if you hit a home run, That's kind of how I see this experiment with Watson coming back from injury.